So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences in the South in the US versus the North in England and how they're surprisingly similar. On the left here is a map of the southern US, the red states. So the darkest red would be definitively in the South. The lighter red and the striped ones, less so. They might say they're in the South, and the rest of us might disagree. So I'm from there. I'm from East Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains, grew up on a farm. And then on the right, this is also a hotly debated topic of where this line should be. This one includes all of Wales. This was actually based on a survey of people self-identifying as from the north or the south, done in 2007. But yes, somebody might come and get me afterwards if their town's in the wrong part. So also up for debate, but now we all live there. So as you can see, and I took a pit stop from the South. I lived in Washington, D.C. and New York. So when I moved to Manchester, was really surprised. I was moving to another city, expected to feel a lot of those same like culture and society around me, and then of course it being British. But it felt way more similar to my experience in the South than I ever expected it to. And there's some interesting reasons behind that. I think there's definitely an attitude of kind of like stick it to the man, like slight feeling of disenfranchisement because you're away from the places that make the decisions. Like, so London would be the center of arts, economy, politics. And so you're in a different part of the country and perhaps feel like decisions are being made by somebody that's not connected to you or doesn't understand you. And the same happens in the southern US. So New York is up here, and DC technically is in the red area, but it doesn't count. It's its own little thing. And then the head of the arts would be in California. So it's this, as a part of that, then you really make your own culture and society, and there's this big self-identifying of we have our own culture, we have our own food, we have our own customs. So it kind of self-isolates a little bit, but in a beautiful way, makes the culture really strong and really inspiring and really different, say, from another place. Like the north of the US would never identify as the North, but the South would always call itself the South. So we'll get a little bit into what might have caused that and the differences and similarities. Oh no, I went away. There we go. So part of this, I think, might be because of the history. So both of these regions had high economic prosperity, followed by times of economic decline. Thankfully, both of them are in growth phases now, so we've turned a corner. But I think that particularly that stage of economic decline perhaps strengthened the feeling of disconnection, which in turn strengthened the feeling of independence and how they've really strengthened their culture and stuck all together. So some of the similarities would be social. Welcome to the South, y'all. We're known for Southern hospitality. That was one of the first things when I was looking at schools between London and here. Everybody was like, well, in Manchester, everybody's so much nicer. It moves a little bit slower. People are more friendly. And that's exactly where I grew up, in the same sort of environment where when the grocery clerk asks you how your day is, they really want to know. And I was used to living in New York where you don't talk like that. So it was kind of harkening back to my childhood a little bit. And then one of the favorite phrases, which we'll attribute to Dolly Parton, who's from my hometown, higher the hair, closer to God. And that's something when I moved to Manchester and all the girls get so dressed up to go out. And I was like, aha, I know these people. So this is actually a picture. This is what we dressed up. I went to visit my friend at the University of Alabama. She was in a sorority there. And this is our outfits to go to a football game. So American football game, to sit all afternoon in a sweaty stadium. We wore dresses and heels, and that was the norm. That's what you do. We would have walked into a stadium, like the Jet Stadium doing that, we would have been kicked out. So that was something that was really surprising and really similar. And then one difference, and I will say my family is not from the South. I don't necessarily cling to all of the pieces of Southern culture, but a huge linchpin of Southern culture is the Baptist Church. So you'll have heard the term the Bible Belt, so that is largely the same areas that you saw in red on the map. So that's where religion and Christianity is really the center of community. The closest thing I could kind of think of, perhaps in the UK, would be the pub. Like, it's a center of very different. Whereas if you're Baptist, you're not allowed to drink or dance or party. Very different vibes, but it's like the meeting place, the community, kind of the community center, the community feel. In the South would happen in church, and so that's something that kind of leans into politics, and the relationship with alcohol and lots of things would be influenced by the South's predominance of Baptist religion. And then we get to language. So both the South and the North have really distinct dialects, accents, words, slang. So in the Southern Grammar Chart, 1 person is you, 2 is y'all, and more than 3 is all y'all. So my mom is an Army brat. She lived all over the world, and she moved to Tennessee when she was in her teens. And then sometime in her 20s, she was looking for a certain type of flower. She'd gone into a greenhouse and asked what type of flower this was, and the man confidently replied, "Oh, that's a pepper flare. I don't have any, but there's other places in town." So she drives to all the greenhouses and keeps asking for pepper flares and can't find any. And she finally goes to one guy. He goes, "Oh, I don't have pepper flares, but I have pepper flowers." And so come to find out, all along the man was saying, "I got my pepper flares and pepper flowers." So similarly, so they have a tendency to drop consonants and add extra vowels. So that would be the case here with pin. So pin, like you would put in, like pointy you put in your clothes versus the pen you write with. We would say both as pin. Anybody want to try it? Pin? Pin. So that's a pin. Here, you can barely see, it doesn't really show up as green. Here, it's this weird thing. So when the sun is out and it's raining, and most people don't have a word for it, some people would say a sun shower. In this little region here of Alabama and Mississippi, they say that's when the devil's beating his wife, because the devil's so upset that it's a nice sunny day, and now his wife is crying because he couldn't let it be a nice sunny day. So that's also Bible Belt right here. So Manchester, I'm not ballsy enough to try any of these, but I'm sure you've heard them and probably not understood what they've meant. I know I didn't. I was so glad Alex had told me what a mag was, because some girl complimented me on my mag, and I was like, I don't know what that means, which is a trench coat. Anyway, so I think that this is another way of self-differentiating your own culture, when you really use slang words, are proud of your accent, and really feel like it's different from another region of your country. And then we're going to end with food. As you can see, we have a theme of brown things that we all love. Brown things, fried things. There was a lot of migration of the English to Appalachia in my area. So the top row would be your Northern England. I know fish and chips isn't specifically Northern English, but there's literally zero appetizing photos of just chips from a chip shop. And then sausage rolls, and this is apparently a Wigan specialty of a pie on a barm, or a roll. So I think we can agree the South wins here. We have barbecue, which I almost did my whole presentation on regional barbecues. There's different sauces, different meats, dry rubs, wet sauces, whatever you want. It's delicious. I haven't yet had good barbecue here. Shrimp and grits, so this is more common in Creole or Charleston or around the Gulf Coast. Grits is kind of like polenta. It's a little bit looser than polenta. It's a bigger grain. It's actually just one step. So there's grits, and then cornmeal, and then polenta are all the same product, just processed a little different. And then this would be what we'd call a meat and three. So this is fried chicken, fried okra, because we fry our vegetables, collard greens, which is vegetables cooked in bacon fat, and then mac and cheese. So meat and three is soul food. So you go into a place and there would be an option of meats and then an option of sides, and you just pick one meat and 3 sides, and there you go. And then we end with bourbon, which is very close to my heart, as many of you know. It is interesting. I would have liked to dive into that too if I had more time on the South's complicated relationship with alcohol. There's many counties where you can't buy a drink at a restaurant or a bar. They can't sell alcohol by the glass. And yet, one of the U.S.'s biggest exports comes from Kentucky, and that is bourbon whiskey. So as you can see, there's some common themes here. And none of us like to eat healthy things. Just to wrap it up, unfortunately there wasn't a yard sign describing the north of England, but in the southern living, where the tea is sweet, our words are long, the days are warm, and our faith is strong. Thank you.